Hey, what is going on everybody, and welcome back for another Pokemon Infinite Fusion Challenge run. Today I'll be seeing if I can beat Pokemon Infinite Fusion with just starter Pokemon only. The rules. I'm allowed to change my team around as much as I want, just to see as many cool fusions as I can. Every Pokemon must be a starter Pokemon for both parts of the fusion. There are no held items or items in battle allowed. And finally, no overleveling past the given level cap. Before we start our adventure, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Also, there's going to be a lot of awesome fusions today, so please leave a comment down below and tell me which one's your favorite and why. Also, let me know what videos I should do next. And don't worry, the quality is a little bit low in the first half, like up until about the 5th gym leader, because my recording got a little messed up. But it does end up getting better after that, when I realized the resolution was just a little bit low for some reason. Jumping right into this, I named myself KTT, and I named my rival Dirty, like normal. From there, I choose my starters. It's between Squirtle, Bulbasaur, and Charmander, and I eventually go with Squirtle, just because it's been a little while since I've used Squirtle. I also go pick his name. I was thinking about Squirt, but I eventually picked Lenny instead. Next, it's time to take on our rival Dirty. Dirty has a randomized starter for some reason, which is actually a Mew Flygon. This might be a problem for me later on, just because it's a legendary. Shouldn't be too bad, since it's part ground type. From there, I get Ocus Parcel, and I find a new team member, a Bayleaf. I eventually catch it, and then I find another team member, Combuskin, who I eventually also catch, and after that I eventually level up and take on the first gym leader, Brock. Brock starts off with his GOG, who I easily take out with 2 quick Razor Leafs before he sends out his Dignex, which I actually one-shot Razor Leaf, defeating Brock that quickly. After that, we head towards Rock Tunnel, where I find another starter Pokemon, another Squirtle, who I eventually catch. Right outside of the Rock Tunnel, we find everybody in a big commotion, because Team Rocket just stormed by. Brock comes by to help us. He tells us to go take on and stop Team Rocket, while he takes care of whatever's going on out here. From there, we head inside and we find Team Rocket, who are trying to triple fuse a Rattata, Ekans, and Sandshrew, before ultimately failing. So, they send the researcher, Miguel, to come attack me. He does end up managing to take out my Bayleaf, and do good damage to my Combuskin, before I eventually take him out. From there, Team Rocket decides to retreat, and as a thank you gift, the researcher actually gives us one of the 2 fossils he found recently. Of course, we pick the Helix fossil, and we make our way to Cerulean City. But first, we fuse our starter, which turned into a Wartortle now, with the other Squirtle that we just recently find, to make what looks like a bigger Squirtle. After that, we also fuse our other 2 Pokemon, the Combuskin and the Bayleaf. From there, we wander in the grasses and eventually find another Pokemon. This time it's a Psyduck Chimchar fusion, which we eventually catch. While here, we also grab another Chimchar, just in case we wanted another one in the future, which we do eventually end up using. Our starter ends up evolving into a double Wartortle fusion, which actually looks really cool with the tail. From there, we grab the 2 Chimchars and actually fuse them together, and make a really cool looking Chimchar double fusion. After that, one of them evolves, and it makes it not look very good, I'm going to be quite honest with you. Before eventually we find another Chimchar, so we catch it for another possible later fusion, and eventually the other Chimchar evolves, and makes his fusion look a lot nicer once again. From there, we try to take on Dirty. We use a quick Fury Swipe on him, a couple times, we get some good damage off on his Nidodo, and we just keep spamming Fury Swipes, before eventually we get poisoned by a Poison Sting, get it to the red, and get taken out. So we send out Cam, our Bayleaf / Combuskin fusion, who eventually is able to take it out for us. From there, he sends in Mantata, which is a Mankey / Rattata fusion, who we end up being able to take out pretty quickly with a couple pecks. Second to last out is his starter Pokemon, Flyu, which is a Mew Flygon fusion. We just keep spamming Bubble on him since it's super effective, get some good damage off, get a lucky miss by him, to be able to take it out. Now last out is his Abra, and as you know, it only knows teleport, so we just quickly use a bite and take him out, and defeat Dirty on Nugget Bridge. From there, we find Bill, who turned himself into a Rhydon. Of course, we're nice people, so we decide to go and help him. As a thank you gift, he gives us the SS Anne ticket, which now allows us to head south of here towards the 3rd gym leader in the SS Anne. But first, we have to take on Misty. Having a grass-type Pokemon, I thought this was going to be a lot easier. We easily one-shot her first Pokemon, but her second Pokemon being part grass-type was actually a big issue for us. Since going into this battle the first time, I actually brought a Water-type with me, not thinking about it, thinking I'd just be able to easily sweep it with just my first Pokemon. I eventually actually lose this attempt. So, I eventually come back, and I easily one-shot his first Pokemon, but this time I come back with 2 Fire types. So, I'm easily able to eventually take out the Audio and obtain the second gym badge. From there, I get the Captain's Key and take on Dirty. Dirty starts off with his Nidodo again, who I just start using some Magical Leaves, Ember, just keep spamming whatever moves I can before getting Whirlwinded out, and Bo comes in, who I just Fury Attack with. But, of course, I get poisoned. Unlucky. So I just keep using Fury Swipe before I use a Flame Wheel and get Whirlwinded back out. And out comes Lenny, who tries to take him out, gets him low, before we're getting whirlwinded again, before I eventually just take him out with a quick ember. Then he sends out his Manacate, who I just magical leaf while he seismic tosses me, doing a lot of damage, but I eventually take him out. Next up is a Starbra, who is able to use a bubble beam and quickly take me out, before I send out Lenny, since I know he has bite. He does a little bit of damage to me before I one-shot bite him. Last out is a starter, Flyu, who keeps metronoming me, but I just keep spamming bubble and water gun and different water type moves that I have. And eventually, after using it enough, I'm able to take him out with him doing barely anything to me in the process, defeating Dirty. From there, I talk to the captain, I get cut, and I go take on the third gym leader, Lieutenant Surge. This is the best luck I've ever gotten. I managed to get the first 2 trash cans on the first try. I walk in, first trash can, boom, got it. Second trash can, boom, got it. And I'm able to just run up and take on Lieutenant Surge. My first attempt didn't go so well. I thought it was going to be a little bit easier than this, since I'm able to one-shot Magical Leaf his first Pokemon, one-shot Magical Leaf his second Pokemon, but the only real problem for me on this team was Rybuzz. This Rybuzz, since he wasn't part water type or part ground type like the first 2, I'm not able to do any super effective damage, and obviously having Lenny as one of my Pokemon really didn't help me either since he's just water type, and he has electric type moves. So I end up getting taken out in the first attempt, before eventually coming back in for the second one. On the second attempt, it was really weird. I just went to go try and use some Razor Leafs or Magical Leafs on his different Pokemon, and he just kept swapping out. I don't know why he kept swapping between the Pokemon, but it just kept letting me get free chip damage off on him. I managed to get to his Rybuzz and do some good damage to it before getting T-Waved. For some reason, he didn't use any very good moves on me. He just kept using like Quick Attack, and I'm able to eventually take that out pretty easily, and then he sends out his last Pokemon in the red, who I take out once again, this time allowing me to defeat Lieutenant Surge and get the third gym badge. From there, we head over to Rock Tunnel. In Rock Tunnel, we actually find a Bulbasaur that we managed to catch and add on the team. While here, we also find a Charmeleon, who we end up adding to the team. This one's going to make a couple of cool fusions, as you might know, since I already have a video where I made a bunch of different Charizard fusions in my Charizard only run. Check that out after this if you want. We also add another Charmeleon to the team, and yet again, we add another Bulbasaur this time. From there, we exit Rock Tunnel and head over to Lavender Town to take on our rival in the Pokemon Tower. We start with Bo. He starts with Kuoto, who we keep trying to Rock Tomb, but do barely any damage in the process, and he managed to get a big Bone Meringue on us before we swap into Lenny. We use a Water Pulse, easily take him out. He swaps into his Gyarados. So we swap into Cam. Cam flinches on the first move, and I just keep spamming a couple of the grass moves I have, either Razor Leaf or Magical Leaf, do some good damage to it, getting it to half HP before getting taken out, so we send back in Lenny. Lenny manages to bite it, do some good damage. He thrashes, I bite it once again. He thrashes, gets me down to 5, then gets confused, and I'm able to take him out. Out comes his Starbra, who ends up taking us out. I left out Lenny because I thought I was going to be able to bite it. Didn't work. So we send out Kernar Ivysaur, who ends up getting a Sleep Powder off before getting super low, almost one-shot Vine Whipping it, almost one-shot Vine Whipping it again, before eventually taking it out with another Vine Whip. Last out is this Flyu, who gets a little bit of damage off before getting taken out, so we send out Lizzie. Lizzie uses a couple Embers before eventually getting Rock Slided, so we send out our other Charmeleon, who isn't named at this point, who eventually gets a Lucky Burn. But sadly, even that Lucky Burn wasn't enough, and we end up whiting out to our rival. So we decide to fuse a couple Pokemon that we have in our PC, make a Charmeleon and Chimchar fusion, and a Bulbasaur and Charmeleon fusion. Now it's time to come back after leveling a little bit, take on our rival. We start off with the same 2 Pokemon again, Bo and Kuoto. I use Rock Tombs. I keep using Rock Tombs. I should have knocked him out, but I actually missed to eventually get knocked out by a big Bone Meringue again. So I send back out Lenny once again, who I just keep using Water Pulse with to easily knock it out. Next out is his Gyarados. Once again, I keep biting his Gyarados. He keeps thrashing me. He eventually gets confused. He hits himself in confusion. I get a good bite, and he hits himself again, and I manage to take him out. Next out is a Starbra, who doesn't quite take me out. I somehow took no damage. I get a good bite off. Then I get taken out. So I send out Kern, Sleep Powder, Vine Whip to take it out. From there, it's his last Pokemon, Flyu, who I try to get some good damage off before he does so much to me. But thankfully, he starts using random moves, and I'm able to get a little bit of extra damage off onto him before eventually getting taken out. So I send out Cam, who gets a big Magical Leaf off to knock it out, allowing us to defeat 30. After that, we see that Team Rocket is up to no good over here at the Pokemon Tower. So we try to figure out what's going on and realize they're doing something in Celadon City. Before we head over there, I had a couple Pokemon evolve. Lizzie evolved into this really nice looking fusion now. We end up finding a Porygon Cyndaquil fusion, which actually looks pretty nice. But I'm going to have to unfuse that later. Cam also ends up evolving into a really cool looking fusion. I can't wait to see what he looks like when he becomes the Blaziken Meganium. Right now it's just the Combusken Meganium fusion. After looking over the team, I quickly see that we have 5 of our Pokemon named. We got Kern, Lizzie, Bo, Cam, and Lenny, but our last Pokemon isn't named. So I decided to go and give it a name. The name I end up going with is Fudd, and now we have a full party of 6, all named. We head over to Celadon City, where we find Dirty over by the sewers, taking on Team Rocket. He makes them retreat before we find Erica, who asks us to help her take on Team Rocket in the sewers. So we go in. While in there though, we had a couple new evolutions. Fudd evolved into an Ivysaur Charmeleon fusion. Kern also ended up evolving from an Ivysaur to a Venusaur. Fudd ended up evolving again, this time into a Charmeleon Venusaur. After that, we eventually find Giovanni at the end of the sewers, and while trying to stop him, he decides he wants to battle us. So, we take him on. First out, we have Fudd against his Arnix. Fudd's able to do a little bit of damage with a couple Fire Fangs or Razor Leafs. I just keep using a bunch of different moves trying to get some good damage off, before he eventually gets put to 1 HP and I get knocked out. So I send out Bo. He ends up fully healing. I keep trying to use a couple different attacks that I have Flame Wheel, Rock Tomb. I really don't do much damage, before he eventually takes me out. But I bring him down to the yellow at least. So I send out Lenny. Lenny takes out the rest with just a Water Pulse, before he sends out his Hong Kong. I was really worried about this because I knew he was going to do a lot of damage with Shadow Ball. But I had Bite, so I was hoping I could do more. But I barely do anything before getting taken out. So I send out Kern, who ends up putting him to sleep, luckily, and doing some good damage with a bunch of Petal Dances to take it out. And while on hit 2 out of 3 of his Petal Dance, Giovanni ends up sending in Ryros, who I easily one-shot, actually on accident, to take him out and stop Team Rocket. After defeating him, I grab the Silph Scope and make my way over to the 4th gym. Now that it's actually open, I could actually take on Erica. Somehow this actually took me multiple attempts this first fight, because I sent out Bo, who actually got 1 hit, because I decided to just try and take it on without fully healing. But I end up taking her first Pokemon before she sends out her Tanape, who ends up taking me out easily. She takes out 2 of my Pokemon because they're both part Fire type, and she has Ancient Power, which does a lot of damage to me. On this next attempt, I start with Fudd. She starts with Executo again. I easily just use a couple Flame Blast. I'm a lot more prepared for this one. Tanape tries to use Sleep Powder on me, which actually doesn't work. I get some big damage off before she switches. She switches right into a huge hit, and I keep on spamming Flame Blast while she kept on spamming Synthesis. Eventually she ends up swapping back into Tanape, who gets 1 hit, who swaps back into Violet Bell, who I just keep Flame Blasting, and eventually take her out, defeating Erica and getting us our 4th gym badge. From there, we find another team member that we could add to the team, another War Turtle. From there, we actually do end up fusing this War Turtle that we just got with our Venusaur. After that, we head back over to Lavender Town, grab the Pokeflute from the top of the Pokemon Tower, and we head south to wake up the sleeping Snorlax. After he finally wakes up, we can keep heading south and eventually make our way to Fuchsia City. But on the way, we end up evolving a couple Pokemon. Lizzie ends up evolving, Fudd ends up evolving into his final form, and Cam ends up evolving into his final form, which I really like. The flower looks really nice. Also, Kern ends up evolving too, which is another really nice looking one. Probably my favorite of this video so far. And Lizzie finally fully evolves this time into his final form. Once at Fuchsia City, we end up taking on Koga. Koga starts with Volmer. We start off with Lizzie. Get a good Flame Blast off first hit. He gets a good Sludge Bomb. Heals. We just keep Flame Blasting, and eventually we take it out. Next out is Magnifying, who we actually 1 hit. Then into his Beether, who we almost 1 hit, before taking out with a 2nd hit. But we got Toxic Spike through the process, which could be a problem. Last out is his ace, Chinook. We try to use Flame Blast, do barely anything. He gets a good double team off. Then he uses Toxic on us to poison us. We try to Strength, do a little bit of damage, do nothing, before he eventually uses Takedown to knock it out. Next out we send out Lenny. Lenny gets hit by the poison from the Toxic Spikes, before getting a little bit of damage off. This ends up just being a stall battle, which is really boring. This is one of the reasons I hate Koga in this game. Just because he just keeps spamming the same moves over and over again and just healing, getting healed from Black Sludge as well. Eventually though, we're able to just take it out thanks to Kern using a couple Aqua Tails to eventually defeat Koga and give us the 5th gym badge. After that, we head into the Safari Zone, we grab the Surf HM, find a Charizard while we're in there, so of course we grab it. We also find an Empoleon fusion that we end up grabbing as well. We find another Empoleon fusion, this time with a Dusclops, that we end up catching as well. We find 1 Grotto fusion, and right after that, we find another Grotto fusion, and I catch both of them. From there, Bo ends up having his first of 2 evolutions that come up. The first evolution doesn't look very good because it's still part Monferno, but after that, it ends up evolving again into a double Infernape fusion, which looks a lot cooler, but it's still looks way too similar to the original one, which I really don't like. Now that we have the 5th gym badge, we've decided to unfuse all of our Pokemon and just form a whole new team. These are currently what we're working with right here. We got a bunch of different Pokemon, a lot of Kanto starters I've noticed, but we're just going to move them all together and see what we can do. The only one that we are for sure keeping is going to be the Blastoise and Venusaur fusion, and nothing else is safe. First up, we got Charizard and Blastoise. Makes a pretty cool looking Steam fusion. Infernape and Blaziken. I really like the hair on this one. The next team member will be Meganium and Empoleon, which is, I mean, it's alright. It's nothing crazy, but... And then Infernape and Empoleon, which I like the bubbles coming off of it. It's pretty cool with to emulate the fire. Then we got our Cyndaquil and Grottle, which I'll show you as he evolves while I level him up. I think this one's going to end up being really cool in the end. So this is the full team. I went and renamed them all back to Lenny, Cam, Fudd, Lizzie, Bo, and Kern. We actually still had. We never had to rename him. But so we're going to have these 6 now. This is going to be the first evolution for Bo, which I like the grass in the back. That looks really cool, like the dead grass because of the fire. Then he evolves again, this time into Torterra, which is alright. But now he evolves into his final form, which is actually amazing. I love the volcano in the back. Now it's time to take on Dirty in the Silph Co building. First off, he sends in his Nidogeot. We send in Fudd. We try to use a little bit of Surf, get a little bit of damage on him. Turns out he's not actually part ground type. So I'm guessing he's probably either flying poison, maybe. But we just keep spamming Surf, and eventually we get taken out, but we put him into the yellow. Next out, we send out Cam, who gets a quick Rock Tomb off, puts him into the red, lowers his speed, which is nice, and manages to take him out with the second one. Out comes his Tauros, who we also Rock Tomb, get a little bit of a slow off, try to strength him before we eventually get taken out. Next out, we send out Lizzie, who gets a Swords Dance off before he uses a takedown, gets a good amount of damage off, and we Flame Wheel. We try to Surf after, put him into the red, somehow survive at 2 HP, he recoils, hits himself, and knocks himself out before he sends out Electabuzz. We stay in, we try to use a move, and get taken out, so we send out Bo. Bo then uses Earthquake, does a lot of damage, takes a big crunch before getting another Earthquake off to knock it out. Next out is a Starbra, who we send out Kern for. We get a big damaging bite off, he keeps using Power Gem, and we eventually take it out with a second bite, before he sends in Flyu. Before we eventually use a couple Surfs on, before getting taken out. So we send in Lenny, use a quick Surf, and take him out. After defeating Dirty, now it's time to take on and stop Giovanni. In this fight, Dirty decides to help us, and we take on Giovanni in a double battle. He starts out with his Primarino and his Ryros, and I start out with Fudd, and Dirty starts off with Nidogeot. They manage to get a one-hit close combat on me to take me out entirely before I send in Cam. Dirty gets a good Thrash off, I get a good Rock Tomb off, before I eventually get taken out because I get poisoned and both of them attack me. Next I send out Lizzie, who I end up using Surf with, get a good amount of damage off. Dirty ends up taking out his other Pokemon. Now Giovanni sends out Genkan. We end up using Surf again, take out the Ryros, do a little bit of damage, before Giovanni sends out a Sand Queen. He then outrages, takes out Dirty's Pokemon. I do a little bit of damage before getting put to the red. Now Dirty sends out Tauros. I attack Sand Queen again, do a little bit before getting taken out, and I eventually end up sending out Bo. Bo gets a big Earthquake off onto them, does a lot of damage, gets another Earthquake off. Dirty ends up getting taken out, but we end up taking out the Sand Queen, learning Crunch, and just like that, we managed to beat Giovanni and stop Team Rocket and defend the Silph Co building. As a thank you gift, they give us the Master Ball. After doing that, it's time to take on Sabrina. Our first attempt really did not go to plan. We tried to start off with Bo, who actually just gets one hit by the Mr. Mime, Hypno Fusion. We then send out Kern, who takes a lot of damage before eventually getting taken out. We then send out Lenny, who gets a good Flame Blast, almost takes it out before he full heals. Get a lot of damage off, put him to the red again, before eventually getting taken out. So we send out Cam, our last Pokemon. She heals again. I use a Rock Tomb, slow it, almost take it out, put it to 1 before getting taken out. And just like that, I get swept by our first Pokemon. Now it's the second attempt. I start off a little different, this time with a Fly, with Lenny. She Baton passes before I get an Aqua Tail off on Esfrion. She eventually starts healing. I keep trying to use different moves before getting taken out by the Future Sight. So, I then send out Bo. Bo uses a Lava Plume while getting hit by a Future Sight. I get a lucky burn off, she full heals. I eventually am able to actually take it out, and I only think it's because of the burn. Otherwise I would have got hit by the future sight. Next out is a Labro, who I just use Crunch once, twice, get him to the red, almost take him out, before getting taken out, so I send out Kern. Kern then finishes him off, and out comes our ace, Genkazam. I'm a little bit worried about this ace, but luckily I have Bite, which is able to take it out in 2 hits, before she ends up sending out her last Pokemon left, Hitmon. Hitmon takes out Kern before I send out Lizzie, who uses 2 quick moves, one of them being Surf, to easily take him out, and obtain us the 6th gym badge. Now it's time to head over to Cinnabar Island. We find Blaine, tell him to get back in his gym so we can go take him on. This battle starts off with him with his Glue Dash and me with FUD. I realize this doesn't go to plan since he just one-hit flamethrowers me, so I then send out Lenny, who is able to get a good Surf off before he full restores. I get another Surf, and then I Aqua Tail, put him in a threshold where I'm able to one-hit him with another Surf hopefully. Somehow I don't. I get Toxic before I eventually take him out. I think the Sunny Day might have actually messed it up. Next out is Magdon, who I Surf. I somehow do almost no damage to before getting taken out. So, next out is Bo. Bo uses an Earthquake. I get big damage, take it out. I only take a little bit, little less than half. So, I send out Cam, take out Chardactyl. This one's pretty easy since I have Rock Tomb, who puts him into the red first hit. I live 2 attacks, and then I manage to take him out with a second Rock Tomb. So, I send back in Bo for his last Pokemon, 9-9. 9-9 Confuse Raise me. I get a big Earthquake, put him in the yellow. He Fire Fangs. I manage to hit myself in Confusion, and then I get roared out before I eventually take him out with a Rock Tomb. Now that battle's done and we have the 7th gym badge, we find Team Rocket up to no good stealing some poor sailor's boat, so we track him down and find him in Mount Ember. When here, we find them fusing all 3 legendary birds into a Zap Molkuno. Giovanni then attacks us, and FUD starts out. He uses a Surf, before eventually, of course, getting taken out, since he has 3 different attacks he can use on me at once. Next out is Lenny, who uses another Surf, gets a lot of damage, puts the Moltres part into the red. The other 2 get pretty low before eventually getting taken out. Next out is Kern. I don't even manage to get anything done with Kern before he gets taken out, because I didn't even get to attack first. Next out is Lizzie, who has the exact same fate. Not a single attack. I thought this attempt was actually over. But, luckily, I have some good, strong team members left, including Cam, who gets a Rock Tomb off on the Moltres, knocks it out, gets put to only 4 HP, who manages to use a Flame Wheel on the Articuno to actually take it out before getting taken out, and all that's left is just the Zapdos part. I send out our last Pokemon, Bo, who I think is actually probably our strongest at this point. I use 2 moves real quickly, including a Flamethrower, to take him out. Now that that's done, I head over to Viridian City and take on the 8th gym leader, Giovanni. This fight took me 2 attempts. Giovanni starts off with his Rhyperios. I start off with FUD. I try to do a little bit of damage. Turns out I think he might actually be part water type, so I don't do anything super effective. Super effective, I should say. But I do a good amount of damage. I just keep hitting him. He keeps full restoring before he eventually sends out Electatrio, who I just keep spamming Surf with to take him out. Next out is this Go-Champ, who actually one-hits me and absolutely destroys me. I thought I was going to be able to do a lot more with Surf. I don't. So I send out Bo, who Earthquakes, to take him out. I then call him back, send out Lenny for his Rhyperios. Lenny tries to use a Surf, doesn't do too much, for eventually getting taken out. So I send out Kern, who uses a Surf, take out Rhyperios. Next out is Glistar, which I'm a little bit afraid of actually, especially since he could poison me like he did. But I managed to get some good damage off before getting taken out, so I send back in Bo, who uses an Earthquake, gets 1 hit by his Earthquake. I don't even get to get any attacks off. Then I send out Lizzie, who Surfs to take it out. Last out is this Rylax, who I get a good Surf on before getting 1 hit Earthquake. I think if I didn't get hit by the Earthquake with Bo, I think I could have won that attempt, but anyways. We go to our next attempt, where same exact start, FUD, Rhyperios, we end up using some Surfs. We get some good damage because he swapped in his Electatrio, who we eventually take out with some Surfs before getting put into the yellow, so we then decide to swap into Bo. He sends out his Go-Champ. We get some good damage with an Earthquake, get put to 8, and we manage to Earthquake it again to actually take it out. Next out is his Rhyperios, who we actually keep in Bo, get a little bit of damage with Earthquake before Giga Draining, putting him to the red before getting taken out. Back out, we send out FUD again. So he Surfs, gets a little bit of damage off. We try to use a different attack. We actually do some good damage to his Glistar before his full heals. We eventually get taken out, sadly, but luckily we put him down to yellow, so now we can just send in Lizzie, who uses a quick Surf to just knock it out. Next out, he sends out his Rhyperios again, who we Surf, get some good damage, get put down to 9, before eventually he takes us out. He actually outspeeds us, unlucky, so we send out Kern, who actually manages to take it out. Last out is his Rylax, who we Surf, get some good damage off, get put into the yellow, and then we Surf again to take it out and earn his 8th and final gym badge. Last fight before the Elite Four. Dirty, once again. He starts off with his Nidogeot like normal, and we start off with FUD. We surf, get a little bit of damage off, we surf again, get a little bit more, he keeps wing attacking, and we eventually take him out while getting put to the yellow, 75 HP. Next out is his Maghorn, who we just one-hit surf easily. After that, he sends in Flyu, who we surf, do a little bit of damage to, and then we managed to actually take it out with the second hit. That was a little bit luckier since he was still in the green. Next out is this Talcute, who we just keep surfing using different attacks, including a Drill Horn that actually takes it out. Flies at 22 HP. He sends out an Electrodos. We easily get taken out, obviously. So we send out Bo, who uses an Earthquake, and actually one-hits it, just like that, leading to Dirty's last Pokemon, a Starkazam, which he doesn't use any actual moves on us, and we just keep crunching to eventually take out. Let's head out through Victory Road, and into the Elite Four, and on to the first team member. Up first, Lorelei. Lorelei starts out with a Magong. We start off with Kern. Kern then uses a Surf, gets a good amount of damage off, puts it into the yellow, before it gets off a Hail. Then we get another Surf off to take it out. We then decide to actually swap into Lenny for her Manbro. Lenny gets a big Flamethrower off, puts it into the red. Manbro gets a little bit of damage off with a takedown before she full restores. Lenny uses another Flamethrower, gets a lucky burn, which actually allowed me to take it out this turn. Next out is her Weros. We use another Flamethrower, do a good amount of damage, and then take it out with the second one. Next up is Tentostir. We use another Flamethrower. We don't do very much, but we just keep spamming Flamethrower until she eventually uses Full Restore, but she eventually stops using Full Restores, and we just keep spamming Flamethrower to take it out. Last up is her Gingrowth, who gets a one-hit Flamethrower, defeating the first Elite Four member, Lorelei. Next up is Bruno. Bruno sends out Mavire, we send out Kern. I thought I was in a lot worse of a spot here, because he's part electric type, but Kern doesn't actually take down all that much damage, surprisingly. I thought he was going to take a lot more. So we use Petal Dance, and after 2 Petal Dances, we take it out before getting brought into the yellow. Next out is a Seacross, who actually one-hit close combats us and takes us out. So we send out Bo, who uses a quick Earthquake. Luckily he uses Agility and no attacking move on me, who we easily manage to take him out with one hit. Next out is his Murachan. We try to use Earthquake before he uses a Dynamic Punch, which confuses us, and we hurt ourselves in confusion. So he eventually takes us out with a quick Boomerang, so we send out Lenny. Lenny then uses a Surf, one hits it, before Bruno sends out Steel Champ. We use a quick Surf, he full restores. We use another Surf, another full restore, another Surf, and eventually we are actually able to take it out with a Surf. Last out is his Magnix. We keep in Lenny, use 2 Flamethrowers to take it out, defeating Bruno. Next up is Agatha. Agatha starts out with Mismabat. We start off with Kern. We use a Bite. We don't do that much. I thought it was going to do a lot more, actually. Turns out it actually didn't. So I just start using Surf, or at least I tried to, before just eventually getting confused and just keep hitting myself in confusion to eventually take myself out. Next up, we send out Bo, who gets Wing Attacked. We use a Flamethrower, then Confuse Ray. We hit the Flamethrower through the confusion. She full restores. We then use Flamethrower again, manage to keep hitting through the confusion somehow, to eventually get a lucky burn when it's at 1 HP, which takes it out. Next up is Umtur. So we send out Lenny, who uses a Flamethrower, gets a lucky burn. We then use a Surf, and the burn is actually able to take it out, leading to our next Pokemon, Snorgar. Snorgar uses Curse, we use Crunch, put it down to the red, before it eventually takes us out with a Body Slam. So we send back out Lenny, who uses a Flamethrower to take it out. Next out is our Wobgar. We keep in Lenny, we use a Fly, try to do a little bit of damage, don't do much, before it eventually uses Curse, which we managed to take it out with Flamethrower. I didn't think I was actually going to get hit by the Curse again. Turns out I do, to eventually take us out. So we send out Lizzie for her Gendoom. Lizzie gets put to 1 HP, burnt, and managed to faint due to the burn. So we send out Fud. She gets a good Inferno off on us, one hitting us. I got a little bit worried at this point, but I knew Cam could come through for us. Uses a Shadow Ball, gets good damage off on me, before I eventually take it out with a Rock Tomb, defeating Agatha. Next up is Lance. Lance starts off with Dragodos. We start off with Fud. He just starts using Outrage. Outrage, I get paralyzed somehow. I keep trying to use Blizzard. I'm not hitting. I get a good freeze before I find out that he has Shed Skin, which actually negates the freeze. He hits himself in confusion a couple times before eventually full restoring. We just keep spamming Blizzard until eventually we get taken out. Now that Dragodos is at half HP, we send out Lizzie, who quickly takes him out. Now we send back in Kern for his Toganite, who eventually gets taken out before only doing a little bit of damage in the process. So, we send in Lenny. I try to use a Blizzard, he full restores. I try to use Blizzard again, I missed this time, but the second Blizzard ends up actually hitting. Now that he's about to send out his Tyra and Dactyl, I decide to send out Cam. I try to get some good damage off before a head smash one-shots me, but it does a good amount of damage to itself in the process. So I send out Lizzie, who's a quick surf, he brave birds, does a lot of damage to himself, puts me to 6 HP before I eventually take it out. Next out is his Typhnar, who I surf, do a little bit of damage to, he misses, I surf again, put him into the yellow, before eventually getting taken out. So I send out Bo, who takes almost no damage, for earthquaking it to take it out. Last up is Poridra, so I send out Lenny, who uses a fly, does almost no damage, before I realize that I have Blizzard, so I just use a Blizzard, put him down to the red, and then I actually miss the next Blizzard and get taken out. So I send out our last member, Bo, before he uses the Recover, he gets Earthquake off, puts him back to the red, he takes us to the red, and then we eventually take him out with the next Earthquake to defeat Lance and move on to the champion. Now it's time for Dirty, the champion. He starts off with his Nidogiat, we start off with Fud, who managed to get a good Earthquake on us. We try to just use any attack we really have. I don't actually know what type this is, so I just start using Blizzard. I get a little bit of luck, he full restores, and I eventually take it out while still being in the yellow. Next up is his Rhyperior Mordor. So I try to use another Blizzard before eventually getting taken out. I then swap into Lizzie, who uses a Surf, puts it into the red, it uses a Drill Run, and instantly one-hits us. Next up, we send out Lenny. It full restores, we use Surf, and one-hit it. We also ignore the move Inferno in the process. Now it's time for a Flyu, so I use Surf, it doesn't do too much. I try to use Blizzard before I realize I'm actually out of power points, so I try to use Surf again, and just keep spamming Surf, do as much damage as I can. Eventually she swaps out into Totor, so I Surf, get it to half HP, it full restores, I Surf again, and eventually I take it out with a couple Surfs. He sends back in his Flyu, who I Surf, and actually managed to take out this time, before getting put into the red. We then swap over to Kern, to try and take out our Electados, who we actually get really good damage off. I thought this was going to be the big problem for us, but we managed to 2-hit Petal Dance it to take it out and almost lose no HP in the process. Last out is a Starkazam, who we actually managed to 1-hit Petal Dance on accident, allowing us to defeat Dirty and become the champion of Pokemon Infinite Fusion using only starter Pokemon. If you made it this far into the video, I'd like to say thank you and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, a like and subscribe is very appreciated. I'll hopefully be making more challenges on Infinite Fusion and other games in the future, so stick around if you want to see more. Until next time, peace.